knocking myself out on the end of it. I'm very happy to welcome our speakers for TA2, and the lead is Effie Kesidou, who's Professor Effie Kesidou, who's here today with Celinda Palm as well. So this is all about, as you can see there, developing effective eco-credential standards. That many of you will know there's been a proliferation of them. And I think it was Effie that told me, and shake your head if I'm wrong, that there is scientific evidence to say that if you collect eco-credentials, you will get to a point where you'll damage your business, not help it. So that's a bit of food for thought. Better be careful which ones you sign up for. But it's a pleasure. I'll hand over to Effie now. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for breaking the very nice coffee break and coming to hear all about the second thematic area. Very nice seeing you after 1 year. So I'm really pleased to report progress we have made in this project. So Thematic Area 2, we have been working really hard over the last year with Dr. Celinda Palm on understanding their strengths and weaknesses, with a particular focus on the fashion and textile industry in the UK. So what we will do the next 15 minutes is I will start with introducing you into the topic and moving on to the conceptual framework which we developed. And we think that this framework would lead to effective design of eco-labels for the fashion and textile industry in the UK. Okay, so let's start with some introductions. The project was about eco-credentials. Now I'm talking about eco-labels. Both refer to self-regulatory frameworks that businesses adopt so as to manage the relationship between the business and the environment. Eco-credentials, there are many. A big amount of them are eco-standards that focus on the process of a business, such as, for example, ISO 14001. We chose to focus on eco-labels, and this is because eco-labels concern the environmental attributes of a product. So this is because the textile and fashion industry is very consumer-focused and consumers receive products. So eco-labels, we consider not that standards are not important, processes are important, but eco-labels play a key role. So eco-labels, they are really crucial for the industry. Businesses adopt them, and we want to understand whether they are effective. They are effective only if they are independently verified, and in this way they can be credible and transfer information that is not misleading. If they adhere to this principles, so to speak, then businesses, they are able to differentiate the products compared to other products in the market. Now, the big question, of course, is whether eco-labels do that. Are they helping businesses to signal their green credentials? This is really a big question, and evidence suggests how we don't still know the answer. And why is that? This is because of, as Steve mentioned, we have a huge proliferation of eco-labels. The eco-label index indicates that there are over 400 eco-credentials across industries and over 100 in the fashion and textile industry. So what we ended up with is confusion. So businesses and the key external stakeholders, consumers, buyers, and regulators, they are not able to assess the environmental credibility of businesses. Does this matter? Yes, it matters, because the whole purpose of eco-labels is to address information asymmetry. So information asymmetry means that businesses understand better the commitment to the environment, to what extent they benefit or harm the environment. The external stakeholders, consumers, buyers, suppliers, regulators, they don't have this information, and this leads to a market failure. So we don't know, we cannot discriminate between, let's say, green and dirty companies. What we suggest with Celinda is a framework that has 4 dimensions. So if eco-labels abide by these dimensions, we argue that they are effective. Effective meaning that they give an accurate, credible signal into market participants and making markets work efficiently. Okay, that's their role. This is just a self-regulatory framework. So the first dimension is standardization of environmental attributes. What do we mean with that? If you look at these 100 eco-labels in the fashion and textile industry, you will figure out, actually the one who found that was Celinda, is that they examine different environmental attributes. Some of them are about carbon emissions, others are about water use, others are about biodiversity. So by doing examining different environmental attributes, not the same, they do not allow comparability. So external stakeholders, consumers, they cannot compare a product with this eco-label, and they cannot say whether a product with a different eco-label is better, right? So what we argue is that we need to standardize the environmental attributes that eco-labels address. The second important dimension, crucial dimension, is transparency. So some of these eco-labels are self-reports. Yeah, we don't really care because there is no trust in the industry. We don't care about self-response. And also we do not, what we really want, suppliers, buyers, regulators, and consumers, they want a credible signal, eco-labels to give a credible information. And this is only credible if the eco-label is certified by a third party. And that third party to be of different ownership than the business that, because we also found data that sometimes it's the same business with different ownership. Yeah, this is not good enough. The third dimension is the fact that we argue eco-labels need to address the whole life cycle of a product. We do know that the fashion and textile industry is an industry that operates in a global value chain. So an eco-label needs to address all the stages of the product life cycle so as to produce the accurate information with regards to their environmental commitment. And finally, I will conclude this part of the presentation with this, is that eco-labels need to have a clear communication, a clear message, depending on to whom they are communicating. So Celinda has found that there could be communication business to business, B2B, or business to consumers, B2C. Therefore, the message needs to be not only accurate, but also clear, so as the stakeholders are able to understand it and act upon it. So I will hand over now to Celinda, who is going to continue with the methodology and the results of our project, and subsequently recommendations. We have produced a report as well, which is free to access and to download, so you are also welcome to read our report. Celinda, change my mind.
Okay. We talked about how scary this is, so this is your all now naked glasses. So as Effie said, like the eco-label index, they say it's over 100 eco-labels within the textile and fashion industry. So how did we end up at 44? Well, we are interested in eco-labels that are used within the textile fashion industry. We're interested in the ones that are or can be used within the UK, and the ones that also include environmental attributes. So to assess that, we went through the Eco-Label Index, the Fashion United, and the Apple Eco-Label Guide app, who all said they have lists of eco-labels. And we excluded the ones that had inactive or websites that were not available in English, assuming that would not be applicable for the UK. That could not be defined as eco-labels according to the definition that Effie showed you. There might be that they're just initiatives or something that are not used for textile fashion. A lot of them were just for shoes or for carpets, interior design or things like that, not for garments. That did not include environmental dimensions, meaning that they focused on working conditions only, for example. And we also excluded those that were designed exclusively for another nation, like there are eco-labels used just within Australia or Japan or even Ukraine have their own. We ended up with 44 eco-labels. So we took those 44 and we placed those on this conceptual framework, and I will go through our findings a bit step by step here. So first of all, we kind of struggled on this certification process. So businesses might report on their data, they do life cycle assessments, but this might not be a good way to communicate what you're actually doing with stakeholders. It's just Excel sheets of numbers, and it's definitely not a good way to communicate to consumers who are in a shop deciding on what to buy. So one way is to try and put this into an eco-label. There are 3 ways. You can self-declare this, just set up your own eco-label, verify it yourself. We found one of those. The second way is a second-party verified, which is normally like an industry association with a membership, and they set the criteria and verifications and all of that. We didn't find any of those used in the textile fashion industry, but we did find 43 of them that are third-party verified, meaning that they are verified by an external verifier that is not connected to the business, at least on paper. So while this certification enhances trust and transparency, there are issues such as vague language, unclear ownership structures, and a bit of a confusion amongst the certifier and the verifier. And this can undermine the trust of these eco-labels. For the environmental attributes, as Phil said, the fashion industry is big, it's global, it has an impact on global processes, and it's also impacted by these processes. So we use the planetary boundaries framework, and this is a framework that highlights how human activities put pressures on Earth's natural processes. So these are the processes that have kept us within this global era called the Holocene. Holocene, is that in English? Holocene, for about 10,000 years. And this is important because it's just during this period of the Holocene that human societies have developed and thrived. And we are now pushing ourselves out of the boundaries of this Holocene. And the further we go beyond this safe operating space, the more risk we have for disruptive environmental change. And we mapped for 6 of these global change processes within the planetary boundaries framework that are already outside of this safe operating space. The good news is that business already have tools to map and assess using life cycle assessments or footprinting methods to map for all of these 6 planetary processes. And this is where the eco-labels come in. Just as Effie said, they play a crucial role in standardizing key environmental attributes and helping to align stakeholder priorities and also enhance the trust in sustainability efforts. The challenge is that there is an inconsistent cherry picking on what environmental attributes you address. And this is a problem because these planetary processes, they are interlinked, all of them. So whenever you have an impact on one of them, it definitely have an impact on the other one. So if you have an impact on climate change, you definitely have an impact on biodiversity loss, for example. So this inconsistent cherry picking and the lack of a system-based approach reduce the comparability of eco-labels, as Effie said, and it also obstructs our ability to assess whether or not these eco-labels even contribute to global environmental sustainability. We also mapped all of these 44 on the value chain, and two key patterns emerged. The most common and fastest growing is the cradle-to-grave scope. It covers the whole life cycle, and this is primarily addressing consumers. It's business to consumer. The second most common scope is gate to gate. That's textile fibers, and that's for business to business. The critical question is that what do these two have in common? They are both addressing relative sustainability, meaning that they focus on the impact of a single garment or a kilo of cotton, for example. None of them, all of them are missing an absolute sustainability, which is the total environmental impact of the industry. Why does this matter? It matters because when we hear arguments like this t-shirt uses 25% less water or whatever, it sounds very positive, but if production keeps increasing, which it is, and it's projected to keep increasing, these individual savings become meaningless because more t-shirts will inevitably use more water. On the positive side, this shows that the industry is quite quick on responding to policy demands and consumer concerns, since they're now claiming a cradle-to-grave scope for their eco-labels. There are challenges because there are transparency gaps. There are undisclosed mass usage. There is a narrow material focus. There's a lot of focus on cotton, even though it's not the biggest fiber used. And there's incomplete life cycle data. And all of this, once again, undermines the credibility, it misleads consumers, and it limits the effectiveness of eco-labels to provide comprehensive information that we need to make choices. So who are these eco-labels talking to? We analyze them according to this business to business and business to consumers. And we wanted to understand because these eco-labels do not operate in isolation. They are a response to shifting regulations, market dynamics, and consumers' expectations. So you may notice that there is a big surge in the mid-90s because that plays a big part here. There were a lot of things happening in the mid-90s. You see the UN framework for climate change. The quotas on textile imports were removed, meaning that low-cost countries like China could kind of have a surge in exporting clothes, and this fueled the rise of global fast fashion. There was also the Nike scandal in the early 1990s that played a pivotal role when it comes to eco-labels because it highlighted the power of media, and it kind of made businesses aware of the power of media and how that can change consumers' demands. So it forced them to rethink transparency and sustainability a little bit. As Effie said, the most common ownership structure is a non-for-profit, and that's also in line with studies that shows that consumers have a tendency to trust messages more when it comes from a non-profit source rather than a business saying it. It also links back to, we only found one that was a private-owned, like self-declared eco-label. So eco-labels play a tool for sharing sustainability information for consumers in guiding them on what to buy, and for businesses to support sustainable value chain management. But they also face key communication challenges. So what we see is when it comes to consumers, we see this oversimplified messages, which risks downplaying sustainability understanding. And on the other side, there is an over-technical side of the information for businesses, which also makes it difficult to interpret and act upon these eco-labels. So for eco-labels to become truly more efficient, this gap between the oversimplified and the over-technical needs to be bridged. So, wrapping up quickly our 4 recommendations. First, we need to standardize these environmental attributes and ensure that they align with global frameworks like the Sustainable Development Goals. And second, it is crucial to adopt systems-based approaches and recognize how these impacts are interconnected across the value chain. And third, firms need to go beyond a third-party verification by strengthening the standards and improving transparency in the certification process. And finally, firms also need to enhance their communication strategies to sustainability information so that the sustainability information is accessible without compromising the accuracy. You have a QR code to our report and a link to the report. We thank you for your attention.